I took some notes.
It's Al's OTA report.
Oh, don't frame it up that officially. It's not. All right. Well, my first note was
I have no notes.
Yeah, I did not prepare. My first note is that that Dan Campbell refers to Aleem McNeil as Buttercup.
Oh my God, that is so good.
No, he says Buttercup's having a great camp. He was very, very highly praised by Dan Campbell, saying that like when they drafted him, they liked him a lot, and once they actually got him in the building and he started playing, like he just was getting better and better, and he really thinks he's going to be a key piece of this defense.
Mm-hmm. So I love his TikToks too. He's great.
I haven't seen him. Okay, yeah, I'll take a look.
Definitely a good follow if you're a Lions fan. He does a lot of in the facility kind of stuff.
Yeah, really, these are just a couple bullet points, so just interject whatever you want to these.
Absolutely. Another thing with that, it almost feels like Dan Campbell is. Oh gosh, I'm blanking on the word right now. What's the word that Charlie uses when? Patronizing. It feels like Campbell's patronizing him with that nickname, and I bet it gets under Aleem's skin.
I don't know. I don't know. The way he was teeing it up made it sound like it was all chippy and good stuff. I don't know.
I don't know. From the clips I've seen and everything and how he interacts, he seems like somebody that would find it very funny to be called Buttercup.
He had a couple other nicknames for him too, but I thought Buttercup was the funniest.
Do you remember any of the others?
No, I don't off the top of my head. No
worries.
Call him Mac a lot. So
that makes sense.
Second little note here, kind of asked about Jared Goff, about how he's looking at camp in year 2, how things are looking compared to year 1. He kept it kind of brief, and he kind of reiterated whenever he was asked about Jared Goff. He basically said the exact words he said were no red flags with Jared Goff right now. And like he says he's doing everything that he should be doing. He said that his footwork looks better. That was maybe one of his improvement notes, but yeah, he didn't really have a whole lot to say about it. He kind of just said business as usual sort of response. And I thought the terms no red flags was kind of interesting. I don't know, because that would maybe imply that they're looking for red flags. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but
that feels like, you know what that feels like? Somebody that is, I mean, if you're on the PR team for the Lions, you know the internet. You know what goes on with the internet. You know breaking stuff. You know the term red flags. That seems like somebody from the PR team was in a meeting with Dan Campbell, and they were like, hey, when somebody asks a question about Jared Goff, just say the phrase no red flags.
But that like
they'll get it.
But that doesn't, to you, that kind of imply like, well, there's nothing wrong, but he looks okay. Like his footwork looks better. Like he looks more comfortable. Like, I don't know. It wasn't anything glowing. It wasn't anything super like negative. It was just like a pretty middle of the road response. I just thought that the phrasing of that was kind of weird.
I do too.
Yeah.
No red flags is not a Dan Campbell phrase. It's not. That's not something Dan Campbell would say.
If you want to know what we're about cutting it loose.
That's a Dan Campbell phrase. Dan Campbell's not ripping these phrases off from like the general internet. You know, nobody has ever once said, if you want to know what we're about cutting it loose. Nobody's ever said that before.
Yeah,
I don't know. No red flags like that. That in itself, him saying that,
red flag
is a red flag.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I mean, I guess they're addressing it the right way, because really, they've been playing everything with Goff really smartly so far. They've been positive when they need to be positive, non-committal when they need to be non-committal,
downplaying it,
and downplaying it where they need to downplay it.
Yeah.
They're giving him a shot. It is what it is.
That's very true.
So
that's a great point.
You know, I guess that's fine, but just something I noted. Next guy, another divisive Lion here. And I actually listened to his conference by himself afterwards because I was so interested. He did talk about Jeff Okudah a bit. So he said Jeff Okudah, like physically, like he's looking great, and they're not worried about the ACL as far as like the injury standpoint goes. He's recovered fine. He's great physically. But he says the biggest hurdle for him to overcome at this point is all the mental stuff.
Oh my God, Matt Patricia ruined him.
Well, Matt Patricia ruined him, and then also a year of having an ACL injury, the second year of your career, you're the number 3 overall pick. It's a brand new staff. You barely played. I mean, mentally, that's like, it's pretty bad. It's pretty rough.
Yeah, he probably
pretty awful like 1-2 punch to start your career.
He probably feels like he is on the outside looking in with this team.
I don't know. I mean, you have guys like Jerry Jacobs come in. You have a Warrior step up. You have guys last year who looked really good, and there's a lot of promise there. And then you have just a guy who was the number 3 pick when they could have taken 18 other guys and would have had a better result at this point.
Yeah.
Like, it's divisive. Also, by the way, 3rd number change. Jeff, come on. This is getting a little like, enough of the number changes. He went from 23 to 30 to 23, now to 1.
Yeah.
He's wearing number 1.
No, I agree. That's a bit ridiculous. But I mean, like, at the same time, he probably feels like 23 is a cursed number now that Darius has left.
Yeah.
So I can't blame him there. But, to my point, he spent 1 season with that Patricia crew, and it was probably absolutely miserable for him.
Well, I don't know. I don't know, because when it was the draft, when everything was going on with the draft, and you see like a profile on him, and you see Bob Quinn talking about why they wanted him. God, we still talk about those guys a lot on the show, but like
they were literally one of the worst things that's ever happened in this franchise.
But they loved him because he was a total football head, almost like obsessively. That's all he was interested in. And like, remember when we were talking about TJ Hawkinson, how after he got drafted, Bob Quinn didn't like he had personality and stuff like that. The reports come out that this isn't the guy I drafted kind of shit. Like, Okudah being a pure football nerd, like that's what appealed to them. And he probably could have fit in okay.
Patricia was questioning his hustle after game 1.
Yeah, well, Patricia was a hard ass on his players.
Exactly.
I mean, that's no mystery. That's kind of
everybody was miserable there.
Yeah.
Then Dan Campbell comes in and he's like, "Oh, this is lit. This guy is absolutely phenomenal. I want to play for this guy." He goes down. What? That was like game 1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like right out the gate, I heard this on, because Taylor Lewan went through a very similar thing on his podcast, because he tore his ACL. You're away from the team the entire time.
He did. Yeah. Campbell did mention him being back with the team was like big too.
Yeah.
It was a point of that.
But you think about, he's probably with the DBs all day, and those DBs, those guys are some dogs, man.
Yeah, they went to work, with the situation they had last year.
They probably built like some big camaraderie, because you think about it. I mean, like Jerry, undrafted free agent rookie. AJ Parker, undrafted free agent rookie. Awarmiye was not drafted high. You think like a lot of our secondary has not been drafted high up like Okudah was. And so they have that mentality of like, we have to fight for everything that we got so far. And
he wasn't there.
He wasn't there for any of that, for all that bonding.
And he's the most highly touted of the group.
And so I can even see like, Jerry, AJ. I mean, I'm not going to say that, like they're going to give him the cold shoulder or anything like that, but they're probably going to be gunning for his job, because he gets to come back, and he probably is going to be sitting up there with a Warmier right out the gate.
Yeah, I mean, they should be, though. That's what they should be doing, gunning for his job. And he has not earned a CB1 spot in the league.
No, I don't think so.
Even when he played in his rookie year, I know you're a rookie. I know there's a learning curve. I know that he was playing for Matt Patricia, but he did not earn a CB1 job. He was slotted into CB1 because he took him 3 overall, and a lot of other teams would have taken him high too. We just did it with a bad defense and a bad roster and a bad coach. But I don't know where I sit with him. I'll just say that I'll leave it at this, that Dan Campbell and the staff seemed encouraged by where he's at. I watched Jeff Okudah's one-on-one after, and he also seemed like he was in a pretty good space. He said mentally, he really reiterated mentally he's in a good space, which makes me think, I don't know if you're in a good mental space, to be honest. That's kind of red flag, right? Dan Campbell phrase. So I don't know. We'll see what happens here throughout camp. I think you have to slot him in at least CB2 to start the season. I would probably put a Warrior 1 right now, and he's earned that. 100%. So I don't know where he ends up, but yeah, right now it's he's probably the biggest question mark on the roster, especially on the defense.
I gotta tell you, I'm rooting for Jerry.
Yeah, but I'm also rooting for the guy we took number 3 overall to pan out into something, because that's a shame. I mean, we could have Justin Herbert. So yeah, it would be really bad if it didn't work out.
I guess.
Kind of on a similar note, just a general note that team chemistry and overall skill level, like in the system, like year 2 from comparison from year 1 to year 2, they were able to not have to install as much and run basics as much. Now they're kind of able to level everything up a little bit, and it's a lot of the same players back, so they're all kind of a little more familiar with the schemes and stuff, and they seem pretty happy with all that's going. Everyone seems like they're getting more comfortable and better, which makes a lot of sense. Year 2. And this is the last note I have on here. This is just kind of interesting to me. It was a question someone asked about TJ Hawkinson, kind of where things are at with him and whatnot. And Dan Campbell had an interesting response about Hawkinson. He made a point to say that you see guys like Travis Kelce and George Kittle and Kyle Pitts, like the guys who are like the top of the top tight ends in the league.
Kyle Pitts?
Yes, he did say Kyle Pitts. He did. But he said that that those guys are like the centerpiece of their offense, and they're like, they're like the mainstay of their offenses. And he views TJ Hawkinson more as just like a piece of the offense, because we have so much depth at receiver with Amon-Ra St. Brown, with Chark, with Jameson Williams, who starts playing.
I agree with this.
And he's more just a piece of the puzzle rather than the piece that those other guys might be. And I thought that was interesting, because we just like, when we took Hawkinson in the draft, we took another fucking tight end in the top 10. He was expected to be the Travis Kelce, the George Kittle, the Kyle Pitts. And this is the first time that I can recall that sentiment kind of being walked back a little bit. And I don't know if it's because he's in a weird contract spot. I don't know if it's because that's actually how they want to use him, and they're totally fine with that, which I think is probably the best way to look at it, because they do have a nice receiving core now and a good running game. I don't know. I just thought it was kind of weird.
Does Hawk want that?
Right.
And my guess is probably no.
He probably just wants top tight end money. I don't think he'll be too upset if he's not Travis Kelce. I mean, I don't know. Travis Kelce's Travis Kelce. He's like one in thousands of players. I mean, like he's a superstar.
He's really one in. I would argue 2, him and George Kittle, but then you can also argue 1 in 4 between him, Darren Waller, George Kittle.
It's Mark Andrews been putting it up there. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Mark Andrews is a little inconsistent, but I agree with your point, and really Dan Campbell's point is that he has never been the main focus of our offense.
It's weird though, because he hasn't been. But is it because, like, when we took him at that spot, those tight ends, those kind of tight ends, like that was like, he's basically like a wide receiver 1 or 2,
absolutely.
In the draft process is how you're looking at it. He did not pan out so far to be that, and I don't know if it's just bad teams.
Shown glimpses, I would say.
He's a well above average tight end.
Yeah,
no doubt. He's maybe even a top 10 tight end.
Yeah,
but like,
I mean, I would argue that's no doubt.
Fair.
Top 10 is. Yeah, I mean, I would say the top 7.
Okay, but he's top notch in the league, and like, I don't know if he, but I don't know if he's anything more than that. That's the thing.
Yeah,
I don't think he is anything more than that.
Well, on the Lions, I don't think he will be, because like the Lions, like we really don't even know how to utilize our tight end that well. Like, I don't know. Like, everybody else seems like the Chiefs and the 49ers, like they just
Patriots for a couple years.
Patriots for a couple years. They either drew a plays to make sure that this guy was open with some space, or in an area where he could go up and go get it.
But
he was that good to get open and know when to be looking for the ball and everything. And it's either the Lions don't know how to do that, or Hawk doesn't have the capability to do that.
Well, I'm leaning more towards that, because like the thing, like the one time as his time as a Lion that you could argue that he could have flashed into that tier you're talking about, I mean, he had like 1 to 2 years with Stafford and Golladay and Marvin Jones, like pieces around him that he could have gotten, he could have gotten some separation in by himself and been more like, I know he's still a rookie second year player at that point, so I don't know, but like,
I mean, we saw his first game, right? I mean, he had an unreal game against the Cardinals, but then now, ever since then, he's either been
like last year, I won't
or
count last year because
injuries.
he was injured, and also he was quadruple covered because there was no other receivers on the depth chart.
Yeah. That's
So that's last year's whatever, and plus it was just a bad year all around. But I don't know. I just thought it was interesting that that's the first time that I can recall a quote from them being about walking back the sentiment of he's like a George Kittle. Like that's all I've ever heard since he's been drafted. He's going to be a George Kittle type guy.
Well, I mean, it's not their pick.
Yeah.
Same thing with Okuda.
Very true.